Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the fantastic but flawed LWRC 12.7. Now, before we get into the video, there are a few people that I need to thank. Number one is going to be Callaway Ballistics for sending out a lot of ammunition to shoot and film with. Ammunition is easily the biggest expense on the channel, so them helping out is a big help. And of course, you can use code FOCUS to save some money at Callaway Ballistics. Number two is going to be Optics Planet. You can use code FOCUS to save 7% on just about anything. They do send gear for me to review, which is again a big help to the channel. The last one is going to be Hunter's Point Shooting Complex for letting me come out and film and shoot using their very nice range. And the last person I need to thank is all of you guys for watching, sharing, subscribing, liking, so on and so forth. And one of you guys actually did my job for me. You guys bugged Griffin Armaments so much that they actually reached out to me and they sent me this very nice, very original Mark 1 upper receiver. That is a 11.5 complete with their setup on it, and it's about $1,200 to $1,300, and they sent me that because you guys bugged them so much. So thank you guys for being so awesome. Now, getting into full disclosure on the LWRC 12.7, I have absolutely no relationship with LWRC whatsoever. I've never spoken with anyone from the company. They've never sent me anything or product or anything like that whatsoever. I acquired my original 16-inch LWRC in a trade. A kind gentleman wanted one of my upper receivers. He didn't need his LWR 16, so I acquired the LWRC 16-inch in a trade. Then a separate gentleman wanted me to rebarrel one of his LWRCs, and so I acquired this LWRC 12.7. So I didn't exactly pay money for it, but I did pay for it in trades and services, and that is the odd roundabout way that I acquired the LWRC 12.7. Now, getting into specifics, as you guys can probably figure out, it is based off of a 12.7-inch 5.56 heavy barrel from LWRC. Now, I've mentioned it in other videos, but LWRC uses a completely proprietary monoforge upper receiver and handguard system. So their upper receivers are 7075 T6 aluminum. They are extended about 2 inches, and they do not utilize the barrel nut for mounting the handguard. There is actually a upper receiver extension underneath the handguard that the handguard directly bolts to, and the barrel nut is sitting back here inside of the upper receiver. What that means in theory is that it is a truly free-floated system, meaning that the handguard, anything that you're doing with it, bipods, barricades, anything like that, does not affect the barrel because it's not touching it whatsoever. So it is a truly free-floated system, whereas on an AR-15, it's like a 99% free-floated system, so there is somewhat of an advantage there. Now, there are several more advantages to the monoforge system. The upper receiver that we have here is, again, about 1.5 inches longer, meaning that you have about 1.5 inches extra of Picatinny on top, which, depending on your optic setup, means that you can push them a lot further forward. The optic that we're using, this is the Riton or Riton 1-10, and the eye relief is quite extensive, so as you can see, this is pushed far forward on the upper receiver. This would be bridging the gap between the upper receiver and handguard on any normal AR-15 upper receiver. However, on the LWRC monoforge system, it is not quite even at the end of the upper receiver yet. Now, the other advantage to that is with the handguards. They do come in a couple different varieties and lengths. You can get long extended handguards, you can get their proprietary mounting system, and you can also get their MLX, which is of course using M-LOK. M-LOK is definitely the way that I prefer. They do have a proprietary mounting system that uses basically bolts to bolt Picatinny and other adapters to their rail sections, which is a little bit less efficient. It's going to be a little heavier. They might be very nice and strong, but again, it's just not going to be quite as lightweight and efficient as M-LOK. Now, the way that the handguard mounts to the monoforge upper receiver is incredibly strong. You have 10 tapered steel bolts that bolt the handguard directly to the upper receiver extension, because keep in mind there is a upper receiver extension underneath the handguard, so they do not touch the barrel nut whatsoever. That is a incredibly rigid way to mount a handguard. It is never going to shift on you one way or the other, because again, it is directly bolted to the upper receiver, so there's no possibility of it shifting, turning left or right, or anything like that. On top of that, you do have lightning cuts all along the top of the Picatinny. It is a continuous Picatinny section. You have 7-sided M-lock all the way around, and you have sling mounting points on the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions. Now, LWRC does make a bunch of different versions of this handguard. They make shorter ones, longer ones, of course. They also have a competition version, which I believe completely deletes the Picatinny rail section on top, and then it has just a little bit at the end, because of course in a competition context, you probably don't need all that Picatinny. Now, the way that I have the rail set up right here, I have a HRT AWLS AUS on the end of it and a Grovtec hand stop, and then I leave the Picatinny section on the bottom, just because anytime I'm going from normal shooting to bipod shooting, I just leave the Picatinny on there so I don't have to worry about it. Now, getting into the heart and soul of the build, this is going to be the 12.7-inch cold hammer forged Nicor treated barrel. Now, it is a heavy barrel, chambered in 5.56, 1-in-7 twist. It is a 12.7 carbine length barrel. We'll get into the gassing a little bit later on. Now, cold hammer forging is one of the best processes for a barrel in terms of manufacturing, and Nicor, from everything that I've read, is kind of like a nitride plus, so you can make arguments between it and other coatings, but it is an incredibly strong, durable coating. On top of that, I believe the base material is 4150, so you end up with an incredibly strong, very, very rigid barrel, because again, it is a heavy barrel, and that is going to be the main downside of the LWRC 12.7. Now, because of where LWRC is manufactured, I believe they're required to have everything a heavy barrel. Now, for their longer barrels, I believe 14.5 and longer, they do spiral fluting on all of their barrels. So they start out with a heavy barrel and then kind of machine it down to a middleweight profile with spiral fluting, and that kind of gets them around the heavy barrel requirement. However, on the 12.7, it is just a straight up 12.7 heavy barrel. And because of that heavy barrel, it's basically a 0.85, 0.9-inch profile in the back to a 0.750 gas block journal, and then almost a straight profile to the end, the 1/2x28 threads at the end. Because of that heavy barrel, it's never going to be size and weight efficient. There are a lot of barrels out there that are going to shave a lot of weight off of it. You can go to a 13.7 from a 12.7, like a 13.7 Hansen, and shave a lot of weight off of this 12.7 heavy barrel. Because of that, it's not particularly efficient, again, in terms of its ballistic performance compared to its weight. It's just not the best profile for a 12.7 general purpose. Now, 12.7 as a barrel length is fantastic. I don't have any problems with the 12.5-inch barrel for just about anything. I've taken this specific option out to 600 yards on 3 separate occasions with fairly good results, as long as I was using high quality ammo and of course doing my part. So the performance of the barrel in terms of accuracy, which we'll get into in just a minute, is very good. However, just keep in mind that you're getting a very big weight penalty on a shorter gun. Most people probably aren't looking for a short gun that's also super heavy, which is why this was originally my mini SPR, because I was trying to take as much advantage as I could out of that 12.7 heavy barrel, putting it in a more accuracy focused role to kind of get the benefit of that heavy barrel. Now, heavy barrels are going to be incredibly rigid. You're not going to get a ton of point of impact shift depending on your suppressor. You're going to have less heat shift because, of course, they take a lot more heat to actually get to the same temperature as a lighter barrel. They just have a lot more mass to heat up. They are also going to have more surface area just by virtue of being bigger, so they're going to cool down a little bit faster, but that's also going to be muted by the fact that there's more material to cool down. So there are a lot of pluses and minuses. Overall, I think a 12.7 heavy barrel doesn't make much sense unless you're in a short package, high accuracy type of situation. Now on the front here, we have a YHM Turbo K on a Rearden Plan B mount. This is actually a Pure Performance Armory titanium adapter and just a Rearden 3-prong flash hider. Very small, very size and weight efficient, and of course a good mounting platform, at least a lot better than the YHM mounting platform, and you get a pretty short, lightweight suppressor at the end of the day. Now moving back to the back of the upper receiver, you have LWRC's ambidextrous charging handle, which is very beefy. It uses solid steel roll pins to hold in your wings on both sides. It is, again, ambidextrous, gives you a lot of surface area. The wings are very nicely knurled, very good grip, very, very beefy, overbuilt charging handle. Now, getting back to the BCG on this build, again, this is the LWRC BCG, and I am cheating a little bit here because this is using the Rubber City Armory adjustable gas key. This is a very high quality bolt, and at this point has probably 3,000 rounds without cleaning. I have added some lube, but it is absolutely disgusting. It doesn't really want to go fully back into battery at this point. If I don't let the bolt slam home, it doesn't go all the way in, which is a good sign that I actually need to clean the thing, because it takes a little bit of extra oomph to get it back. Now with the suppressor, it's over gas, so it's still running just fine, but after about 3,000 rounds, it's probably time to clean the bolt. Now before we get into how the upper receiver shoots, we do have to talk about the RCA adjustable gas key. Basically what it does is it restricts flow into the carrier from the gas key itself, so it doesn't do anything with the gas block or tube, but actually restricts it at the back end, which you could argue pros and cons that it is still getting a bunch of gas back into the upper receiver versus restricting it up front a little bit. I think that in general is going to be a little bit more advantageous. However, I did not want to touch the LWRC gas block or the gas tube as well, as we'll get into in just a minute. So as far as gassing goes on the upper receiver, it is a .067 gas port size, which is pretty small and not necessarily the smallest out there, but it's a good general purpose use. However, with how tight the gas seal is between the barrel, the gas block, which the gas block had to be pounded into place with a rubber mallet, and then it is of course pinned in place with a taper pin, and then the fit between the gas block and the gas tube means that that .067 is a lot more efficient than some of the other barrels and gas block combos on the market. So it performs overgassed, like it's a .072 or something like that. So it is definitely in the overgassed category. Now, I don't care whether you guys call that combat gassed or whatnot. Even with an H3 buffer in the back, which is what I'm using currently, this is running a H3 buffer, it is still definitely overgassed, even when unsuppressed. When suppressed with the YHM Turbo K, it's ejecting anywhere from like 1:30 to 2 o'clock, depending on the ammunition used. However, when I actually turn it down with the RCA adjustable gas key, you can get that to eject however you want. So I was ejecting at the end about 3 to 3:30 with some high quality ammo. Now, with these around 3,000 rounds that I put through this upper receiver, I have had one failure. I had one failure to extract. It was with ADI 62 grain L2A1, which is basically a M855 clone. I had one failure to extract. Then I put that ammunition in a different gun and had two failures to extract. So I would guess that it is ammunition related, not necessarily a problem with the upper receiver itself. But again, just keep in mind that through about 3,000 rounds, I had one failure to extract. So shootability from the factory, again, definitely on the punchy side, a little bit overdriven, especially when you throw a suppressor on the mix with a bunch of back pressure. You are going to need to use heavier springs and buffers if you want to have the best recoil impulse possible. If you don't care, if you don't mind having a little bit more recoil, then it's going to be just fine. But keep in mind that it is a little bit more punchy than some of the other options on the market. Now, I'm using again, RCA adjustable gas key to mitigate that. If you don't want to do that, because you can't do that on their proprietary bolts, or not their proprietary bolts, but their included BCGs if you buy one of their factory upper receivers, it's not going to be an option for you. So you're probably going to want to go with a heavier spring buffer, maybe an A5 system or something like that, because this is a legitimately overgassed gun, and it definitely needs something to make it a little bit more pleasant to shoot, especially when suppressed. Now, getting into accuracy on the 12.7 heavy barrel, fortunately, it is pretty good. On this specific day, I've done accuracy testing on it several times at this point, but on this specific day, I had some 62 grain ADI L2A1, which is again kind of an M855. That shot at about 2.5 inches, though it's a crappy ammunition and it shoots about that with everything that I throw through it. Next up, I had some 69 grain ADI match. That printed about a 2 MOA group, which is pretty disappointing for that ammo, so I did retest it a little bit later, which we'll get into in just a minute. And then I threw in some 69 grain Federal Premium, some 69 grain Sierra Match King. That printed about 1.5 MOA. Mediocre, not very good for a heavy barrel, especially a very high quality heavy barrel. And then I went ahead and retested the ADI to make sure it just wasn't me being, a doofus and ruining the group. I shot another 5-round group, put 4 rounds in the exact same hole, and then one right next to it for about a 3/4 MOA group. So the LWRC 12.7 is certainly capable of MOA or better accuracy given the right ammunition shooter optic combo. Now, I've proofed this out to 600 yards on multiple occasions, which for me is kind of the top end of a 12.7 5.56, and honestly, probably stretching it a little bit. I want to say with 69 grain ADI match, At 600 yards, it was like 22 MOA of drop, something in that ballpark, and quite a bit of wind depending on the day that I was doing it. So not the best caliber to take out to 600 yards. Even though it is doable, it's definitely not the easiest thing out there, at least for me personally, and certainly not going to perform like something a little bit more suited to that. This is actually the original LWRC 16-inch barrel that I have rebarreled into a standard AR-15 upper receiver, which I'm pretty sure is an affront to LWRC, and if they knew that I did that, they might send somebody to my house. Now, even a 16-inch or an 18-inch or a 24-inch 5.56 certainly isn't going to perform at long range like a 6.5 Creed, or like a 6mm arc that we have right here that is going to be coming up shortly. Now, for me personally, LWRC is something that I consider in the premium category of AR-15s, some of the best on the market. When it comes to price, however, they're kind of a step below premium, coming in for complete rifles anywhere from like $1,300 to $1,500, depending on models. Their piston models are going to be much more expensive than that. They can start anywhere from $2,000 to like $4,000 if you're getting into some of the bigger calibers as well. But for the DI AR-15s, very premium features and performance at a reasonable price category is going to be in the same category as like a complete BCM, complete Geisley, somewhere in that range, but they're doing a lot more with the platform. Their upper receivers, rail systems, fantastic. Barrels, fantastic. The things that they're doing with their bolts as well, very, very cool. They're stretching the designs of the AR-15, not just making basic AR-15 components and repackaging them as premium. They're actually doing a lot with the system and stretching it to its limits. Now, something that I should mention is that if you buy a complete LWRC rifle or pistol, the lower receivers are also very good. They're just a mil-spec lower, but they come with a enhanced trigger and they come with completely ambidextrous controls. And again, you're not really seeing that in the $1,300 to $1,500 price category. A lot of the times you're just getting a basic lower receiver with maybe a nicer trigger, and that's about it, versus a completely ambidextrous lower. Again, sub $1,500 in a lot of cases. Now, the problem that I have with this LWRC 12.7 heavy barrel is the fact that it's a 12.7 heavy barrel. It's just never going to be as size and weight efficient as other options on the market. So for instance, this 12.7 heavy barrel, even though the 16-inch heavy barrel from LWRC is of course longer and a little bit heavier, it's much more size and weight efficient because with the 16-inch version, they do a lot of aggressive fluting on the entire barrel, which so it is still a couple ounces heavier, but in terms of size to weight to performance, you're getting a lot more with their longer barrels than like a 12.7 heavy barrel. I don't know of a lot of people who are looking for a short package with a heavy barrel. I think that kind of knocks it out for a lot of people having a 12.7 heavy barrel, unless again, you're looking for the shortest, most accurate package that you can, and you love the rest of the LWRC feature sets. Now, if you're somebody who likes to build upper receivers and modify stuff, I would not recommend LWRC whatsoever because they don't anticipate you modifying them whatsoever. They don't anticipate you doing anything other than maybe swapping out a rail. And again, when you buy an LWRC, you're buying an LWRC, not a basic AR-15 that you're going to modify later on down the road. If you love the feature set, you're going to really like that. But if you're somebody who likes to tinker and move stuff around, then I would definitely recommend passing on LWRC. And if you're still in that mid-range price category, go with BCM or something else like that, which is much, much more standard AR-15 components, just done very well. Now, as far as I personally go, I love the LWRC 12.7. I've used it a lot. It's been my main rifle for quite some time now. And again, it does everything that I like it to do. However, when it comes to recommending a 12.7-inch heavy barrel, I probably can't do that. The list of people that are looking for a shorter gun with a very heavy profile barrel is probably going to be a few people, and I certainly can't recommend you buy an LWRC 12.7 and then swap out the barrel, because that's going to completely reduce your value proposition. You need some special tools to remove the barrel in the first place. It's not a particularly fun process. I have a video on removing and swapping the barrels out. It's not very intuitive. It's not very fun. You're going to need some special tools, a couple $100 worth of LWRC equipment to change out the barrels, and then you're ruining your value proposition and you're not getting the LWRC barrels. So while the 12.7 barrel length itself might be great as like a short do-it-all upper receiver, 0 to 600 yards, kind of a general purpose role, I think their 14.5 or 16-inch upper receivers make more sense, especially when you get to the fluted barrels, because you're going to be shaving off a lot of weight and you're going to be a little bit more efficient in that regard. And again, about the same price and a little bit better ballistics velocity, so on and so forth. those make more sense to me versus like a 12.7 heavy barrel. So again, I love the LWRC 12.7. It's been one of my favorite rifles to shoot, but do I recommend it to you guys? Probably not. So with all that out of the way, guys, let me know what you guys think of LWRC in general, or specifically the 12.7 in the comments down below. And with all that out of the way, guys, I do want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.